Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma. Joining me here for a glorious victory Monday, Mr. Brian E. Roach. Brian, what's going on, my friend?
Joe, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Are you singularly focused on this game?
Why you gotta be using that? You know, I'm just Brian's teasing me with all the travel, the hustle and bustle, the change in the weather, everything that's going on. Holidays coming up, being sick. I've had like a hairball in my throat like forever trying to do these shows. I'm gonna try and get through this one. You're gonna play the world's tiniest violin. Yeah, we'll just see when you're down and out, my friend. So, but I'm not down and out.
I am never down and out.
I'm not down and out today, and I think you know why.
Yes.
Just desserts for the Cleveland Browns. They could cue up the na 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 na, especially to Myles Garrett. Talking shit post game because there was a Cleveland sucks chant. You know, the last time I was part of a Cleveland sucks chant, I do believe it was Ben Roethlisberger's basically retirement game, Baker Mayfield being there, and it was the same thing, the same culprits. You know, talk it smack, got your billboard, chalkboard material for the locker room. They got so full of themselves after winning in the snow on a Thursday night in Cleveland, and now they've been exposed for who they are. Sorry, Kevin Stefanski. I'm looking forward to seeing Hard Knocks AFC North, but that whole playoff speech is now out the window because there is no playoffs. You may as well queue up. Was it Herm Edwards or Jim Moore? I think it was Jim Moore on the old
Playoffs.
Playoffs.
Yeah.
Playoffs.
Yeah.
Speaking of
Playoffs.
ads, you know, before I dump some more on the Cleveland Browns, did you happen to see it was like an outtakes State Farm commercial with Mahomes and Jake and your Bundalewski friend Andy Reid? Oh no, you got to see it now.
I'm very sad.
Yeah, because they're actually poking fun at him trying to say Bundalewski. He's like
Bundalewski,
and like I don't know if they were like, it almost seemed like fake outtakes. Like I wanted kind of like the more real, genuine ones. Maybe they had one snuck in there and then they threw another one. I don't know. Who am I to guess? But I just thought that would be funny. But yeah, playoffs. I was already saying that before they played this game. This was a must-win for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are now 3-1 in the AFC North, commanding 2-game lead over the Baltimore Ravens, who were on a bye. And then you got the Bengals, who are still toiling around somewhere on the cusp of the outside looking in further down the playoff window. They play Monday night with the whole Monday Fun Day, Simpsons, whatever thing. And I almost did that, Brian. I was going to get the graphics department. I was going to queue up, here's a Sunday Fun Day or Monday Fun Day of Brian, and I was just going to have a regular still picture of Homer Simpson, but I didn't want any copyright flags on the show.
Good, I appreciate that.
Oh man, so yeah, where do we begin with this game? I don't even know where to start. Usually we could do like blow by blow, but this was one like in the middle of the third quarter. I was like, finally, I look over at my cousin. I'm like, it's finally like one of these games where it doesn't feel like it's a nail biter. It feels like this is in hand, and Cleveland is just so distant from having any kind of chance at winning this game, aside from the Cordero Patterson fumble, of course, which still didn't bug me like too much. But at the same time, I think we got to talk about slow starts in the first half, and I know it was driving you up a wall.
They can't do that this week, right? They just can't. If they do, they're doomed this week anyway. They're screwed. They haven't won in Philadelphia since 1965. They're doomed.
I think that's going to change, though, and that's because they just don't play there. They play like every 4 or 8 years or whatever.
They have
don't
been
play
sacked 18 times in the last 3 games. 18 sacks in the last 3 games in Philadelphia. And this defense I will believe they will win in Philadelphia when they win in Philadelphia. It's so close. I can almost say, and you make fun of my ancient age, I can almost say that in my lifetime, they have never won in Philadelphia.
Almost.
Not quite, though.
Almost. I mean, I could say that. Well, some of these narratives exist to be thrown out the window. And
they do.
I don't want to get into a preview like 11-2 Philadelphia Eagles. They struggled a little bit with the Panthers though, man. So I
That was
know
their trap game.
it really was. I believe. I mean, they're playing at home. It's gonna be a tough place to play. You got two teams that are good at scoring points and not allowing teams to score. I mean, right now the Eagles are only giving up point 0.3, which isn't real. Point 0.3 isn't even like a full point. It's not even real. Steelers give up 18.3. Eagles give up 18 on defense. They score 26.3. Steelers score 24.8. I'm not trying to look too far ahead, but Steelers are number one in the league in takeaways. Passing yards, neither one of them are really interested in it, even with Jalen Hurts, even with A.J. Brown and all of these other guys that they've got with the Eagles. But they've got the number one running offense in Saquon Barkley. But, that was all the same things they were supposed to be facing. Now they're number one against the pass defensively and like in the top 10 against the run. So it's going to be interesting to see. I do think that this game, when you had Jameis Winston throwing the ball around as loose as he was, and you have a team that had nothing to lose, they're desperate. The Eagles are not a team that doesn't have anything to lose. They have to keep chasing the Detroit Lions, who just failed. They won't lose, even though Dan Campbell, I think we may have been making fun of this. Maybe the game wasn't played yet Thursday night. I think we went on air Thursday before it was. This crazy ass was going for it like on 4th down from the 20-yard line. He just had to kick a field goal and win. I understand wanting to run out the clock. You saw Tomlin do something like very kind of similar, and they didn't try and run up the score or whatever. But I think we've gotten to a point with analytics too, where it's like, what's the risk reward ratio if we send like our defense back out there? Is somebody going to get hurt? Could we theoretically lose the game? I mean, ultimately it's about winning and losing the game, right? And that's where I believe it stands is you don't want to put these guys out here because you don't want to risk any kind of freak injuries. And if you could just seal the game by being able to execute one more play, gain a first down, and then either kick a winning field goal. We saw the Chiefs did that too Sunday night. And it was just like, oh my goodness, Matt Wright, formerly Pittsburgh Steelers camp kicker, doink. And I was just thinking that, man, I was like, what if he misses this and then they lose, which would have been nice. Would have been nice. Thanks for nothing, Jim Harbaugh. Can't help us out at all. So Buffalo falls down, tied with the Steelers here, but Kansas City still in the pole position. Kansas City has to drop another game somewhere for the Steelers to get this number one seed bye in the AFC.
Yeah, I was trying to look at scheduling, and there is a game I think they could lose. I mean, to be honest, they could lose their last game to Denver, right? Denver's been playing consistently better. Denver will be fighting to get into that last wild card spot, probably. Won't really be able to take the game off. They could lose that game, right? So that's a maybe. There's one other one. I can't remember who they play. There's one other one I thought that maybe they could lose, but I don't remember what it was. The Browns could beat them. Possible. It's in Cleveland at least.
Yeah, I mean, you never know.
You want to do us a favor, Craig or Charles Bragg, get your guys beat the Chiefs, and do me a favor, do me a solid.
Yeah, come on, Myles Garrett, show us who you really are, other than a garbage time sack where Russ ran right into you. Samalo basically blocked him right into Russell at the end, like these garbage time stats. With you know what, I had some F words to describe, 4-letter F words to describe the Cleveland Browns. You ready for this? I said I was gonna bleep everything last week. I didn't want to deal with editing. I'm not gonna deal with it anyways this week. They're fake. They're just fake. I'm gonna call them that instead of the other word. You know what I want to say.
Here's the thing. What the last game shows, because look, TJ had one really nice tackle for loss, but was basically held away from making an impact on the game, and so was Myles Garrett. Right? You can scheme these guys out of contention if you choose to do so. They had 2, sometimes 3, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they didn't block him at all. But they had a scheme in place to minimize Myles Garrett this last game. They have teams. So, like, I'm just not as anti-Brown as you, right? This is the thing. If you've got a decent quarterback, not one who throws picks to the interior defensive lineman, and not one who is just terrible and washed up and shouldn't have charged $50 billion trillion zillion dollars for a contract. If you've got a decent quarterback, if they draft a quarterback next year, when they finally have draft picks back, and they actually happen to have maybe hit on it and have some success, they're not that far away from being a good team. They're really not.
No, they are. Because number one, I don't believe the owner will allow either the GM or head coach to stick. They've tried so many different things. The offensive coordinator, they're going to change something because he just can't help himself. If they don't do it now and they don't have the instant success, just think if they draft the quarterback. Okay, they weren't even going to play Winston over Watson. Now they're still going to try and trot Watson out there. Everyone's going to be clamoring for the rookie QB. He didn't re-sign. Joe Flacco was willing to come back, who literally signed the exact same contract as Jameis Winston. What was it, off by just like $1 or something? He got like $1 more or something. It was super petty what the agents of Joe Flacco did in Indianapolis when he signed there, because they didn't want any kind of turmoil or controversy in the locker room. You've got it already because Winston was out here throwing for 400 some yards, almost 500 yards in 2 games before he ran into the Steelers. So I don't trust. This is a Steelers show. I don't need to talk about the Browns. I'm not worried about them because some of their players, they're finally getting up there in age. Offensive linemen. Well, dude, look at it. Be serious. Be serious here for a second. Even my bias. All of the stuff they used to say about the Steelers when you had Pouncey and DeCastro, and those guys are going to get old and this and that, and Ben, and well, hey, they're facing it now too. It's like Garrett is up there. He's in the 30 range too, just like TJ is, 29, 30. And now it's still prime for those type of guys. I'm not going to say that. But I think somebody like Denzel Ward, like that type of contract, it's not somebody they're going to keep around. They can't afford it. They got too much money that's guaranteed and tied into dead cap. And they kept pushing it into the future. They just don't have the money. They do need draft picks. It's why when they saw that they were already kind of their season was already gone, they got rid of Amari Cooper, they got rid of Zadarius Smith. They're going to have to replace those kind of guys. They're going to have to do it all with draft picks and cheap contracts in order to remain competitive in the AFC North. I don't see it. I don't. If they get another quarterback, then eventually offensive line. Now they've got some guys that are hurt, DeJuan Jones and stuff like that. Okay. But we'll see. I think losing Bill Callahan, the offensive line coach, was huge. I don't know that Kevin Stefanski, I think, is an okay head coach. I know he's won these awards, but I don't know how much of it's there. Jim Schwartz, the guy has success and then he doesn't. I can't ever figure Jim Schwartz out. He's like, who's the guy that got? He was actually the interim head coach for the Browns. That was from the Saints. Greg Williams. Like he was another guy that's like, yeah, the Bounty Gate guy. He was another interesting one because it's like he pops around, he ends up somewhere. Rex Ryan, another guy, like they have like a year or two of success and then, like a deflated balloon. It's like people figure him out. I don't know. And maybe it is some injuries and stuff like that. They have some base players. They still have some nice young players. They aren't, well, I'm going to put it this way. They're not like the 0-16 Hugh Jackson Cleveland Browns, okay? They're not the 1-31 stint that he had. They're not that far off because you still have
here's
guys
the bottom
like Garrett,
line,
right?
They have a team that is capable of beating other teams, right? If Winston just doesn't give the ball away, they can beat other teams. They proved that. They beat the Ravens. They can win. The problem is that they've had too much. Well, forget the first set of games, because I'm sorry, I'm out with the whole Deshaun Watson thing. If they put him back in the starting role, at some point you just have to eat crow and go, yeah, he stinks. We're done with that, right? And they need to be there. The fact that they were stubborn enough to stick to it, and maybe that's the owner, maybe that's the coach, maybe they just couldn't figure out what to do because they were paying so much money they didn't look like idiots. But whatever it is, he stinks. He's washed. He's done, right? He is terrible. If they put him back out there again, then they're giving up on whatever season and whatever time frame their decent players have left with them. They're reaching. I don't even see like Nick Chubb back next year either. And I'm not sure Nick Chubb, he's still an okay player. But I just think the offensive line there, I think there's going to be a lot of gutting of that team, and then it's going to take them a little bit to get back on track. And of course, quarterback's going to be tough too, right? So, and you still got to play. You look at the Bengals. It's like, how far are the Bengals off? Because their offensive line, and you used to say they're the offensive line off, right?
Yeah.
But now I don't understand what the hell is going on with their defense.
Orlando Brown just stood there like a statue 2 weeks ago. So I know we're getting a little bit off into AFC land here, but got to look at the Chiefs. You said their schedule. We were talking about the Browns because of the Chiefs. I don't know. Cleveland could pull an upset. They're at home. Their fans are miserable enough. The weather will be trashy enough.
The Chiefs just don't scare you right now, right?
No.
They're pulling games out of their butt.
Well, here's the thing. What was the statistic?
Whatever.
Mahomes Mahomes has thrown the most interceptions of any quarterback under pressure this year. You think the Browns could put some pressure on him? I believe so. I would think so. I just think that here's the other thing that's like a factor for me. When you have teams within divisions, those teams you're equipped to win your division first. So
Yes.
Cleveland is equipped to face the Steelers and vice versa, and then the Ravens and then the Bengals. You got to keep your eye on those teams. So that's why, like, a lot of times when you see the Ravens go out of division or the NFC, nobody knows what to do with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. But the Browns or the Steelers, one of those defenses, it's like, oh, nope, we've seen this before. We know how to game plan it. We saw it, we saw something similar to this earlier in the season or the year before, or wherever it may be. And they know how to, they prepare for it, right? Or they can prepare for it. They have the personnel for it. They have the talent on the field for it. It makes me wonder if the Steelers have that. They'll like face like the Chiefs, but you look around and it's like Juju and Xavier Worthy and guys like that. Okay, so the Chiefs, this is who the Chiefs have left, right? They got 3 out of their last 4 games are on the road. That's tough. They have to face the Browns. Okay, they could beat the Browns, right? But I mean, the Chiefs are scoring. They scored 19 against the Raiders and 19 against the Chargers. They had 30 against the Panthers, but then 21 against the Bills, 16 against the Broncos, who should have beaten them with a field goal, right? And he just
if Jameis Winston has one of his 500-yard games, maybe they can beat the Chiefs.
Yeah, or they force any kind of turnovers.
If he doesn't throw 3 pick sixes.
Yeah, that's that's exactly it. And it's like Winston's still the same Winston. How he throws that pick to Keanu Benton is beyond me. That's phenomenal. Benton's like I'm one of the guys I'm really high on. It's phenomenal. Nice to see a young guy like that. Cam Hayward's like, what, game ball for that? Like, I forgot who asked the question. He was like, where was my game ball? But 3 of the 4, the one at home, they play a Saturday game too before the Christmas game. So they have a short week after the Browns, which is like playing the Ravens or the Steelers. They're going to be physically wounded. And they got to play the Texans. The Texans have been, especially the last 4 or 5 games, CJ Stroud.
That's the other one.
Has been a little off.
Because it's in Houston.
No, this one, it's in KC.
Oh, well, then
yeah.
Okay, so the 2 games. So, and then they have us. So it was Houston. It's actually the Browns game. I'm like, they might lose that game. And then because they end at Denver.
Yes, after playing Pittsburgh. Now they get a little bit of a mini bye before playing Denver because of that Wednesday Christmas game. So it would have been, if it was like a full week after that, it's possible they could have lost 2 in a row, maybe to the Steelers and the Broncos. I just think that's like 3. All 4 of those are going to be they're going to be a lot more physical defenses. I know Buffalo does all right here and there. I don't consider Buffalo a defensive team. Buffalo is, especially after the Rams laid 44 on them.
Buffalo has weaknesses.
Yes, Buffalo has, they have some cracks in the armor, but they played against the Panthers. They played against the Raiders, the Chargers. Herbert left that game for a quick minute yesterday, etc. They weren't, I don't know that the Chargers are all the way there to do a competitor or contender. They may be a playoff team. They're not completely terrible. They're like above 500, above average. They might surprise. They might play spoiler in some cases. The Broncos are in that same kind of category too. I think the Broncos have a better defense. They have a better pass rush. So there is a path there. You're now tied with Buffalo, so you can't give up any games. This is where I'm like running around to, right? I'm trying to get back full circle. This was important because it's an AFC game. This was important because it's a division game. You keep your 2-game lead, so you make sure maybe you have a home playoff game by keeping Baltimore at bay. You have, but the hope here with Buffalo now is they got to go to Detroit. All their games are Sundays. They got 2 road games, 2 home games. So on the road at Detroit, at home against the Patriots, and at home against the Jets. And then back at New England.
On the road to the Patriots.
And on the road to the Patriots, where depending on what the standings are like by then, they might not even play anybody in that game.
In theory, they have 3 gimme games.
Yeah, they really do. And you need them to drop one. It's going to be tough to say the Steelers can only drop one of these next 4 with the Eagles, with the Ravens, and with the Chiefs, and then the Bengals too. So the Steelers probably were looking at the 3rd seed. That's not so bad. They're going to be, I don't think they'll drop any lower than that. And I don't know. I can't see them losing the division either, because even if it comes down to them dropping 2 games, I don't think they dropped the game against Baltimore. I think they realize just how big, how important. They're not going to overlook Baltimore. And depending on what happens with the Eagles this weekend, a 425. Like their schedule's all over. Then you have 425 game in the week, whatever. Then you have a Saturday game. Then you have a Christmas game. It's 11 days, 3 games. It's brutal. It's the part that we knew about the entire time. But even if they drop 2 of those, the one they really can't drop is against Baltimore or drop it bad. They have the head-to-head tiebreaker. I think they're going to end up winning this division. You're going to get a home playoff game finally for the first time since the COVID year.
Yeah, I think that I agree with you 100%. That's if you look at the schedule realistically, that's the only loss potential on the Ravens' remaining schedule, right? Is the Steelers game. Yeah, maybe they could go to Houston and lose, but probably they won't. But that game is the one that they could lose, and that's the one that the Steelers have to pick up. Even if they lose the other 3, they have to win that game, and they win that game, then I think they've won the division. Because what is maths says? Well, actually, it doesn't say they'd win the division. They better beat the Bengals too. They got to win 2 of those games.
Yeah, I was gonna put up the maths with Brian, but they're at 10. Brian, 10 wins.
All right, wait a minute. So let's do this. Good. All right, if the only game they win is the one against the Ravens, then they're 11-6, right?
Yes.
And if the Ravens win every game except the ones with the Steelers, that's also 11-6.
Yes.
Did I do that math right?
I think
in which case we own the tiebreaker and we win the division.
Correct. They're in a good spot. Would have been nice not to give up the first Cleveland game, but at least they don't give up this one. They could go 4-2.
Oh man,
5-1 in this division.
The Colts game and the Cowboys game are killing me now.
Yeah,
they're just killing me.
I mean, it's an arms race, but who thought that? You know what? Aside from the smartest guys in the room, right here with me and you, who actually thought that Steelers would be here at this point right now? We're like the only ones, and we actually laughed at ourselves. Is this possible? Is this possible? And it's like it was really hard to imagine them being worse than last year. I don't know who in their right minds, the preseason magazines, all the talking heads, all that stuff. And it's just like, is Russell Wilson going to be that bad? Would Justin Fields even be really that bad? Like, I mean, you got a guy, Mike Tomlin, just as much as anybody's going to say mediocre or whatever they want to call him, all the guy does is win. Call him DJ Khaled. All he does is win, 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 no matter what. It was hard for me to fathom it. So when you put them up against some of these other teams, nobody saw the Bengals implosion. I was a little more edging on the Browns and Bengals being toward the bottom than even you were. I think we were flipped on the Ravens. We can never figure out what the Ravens are really going to do. Ravens had some close games too. One of those is another Kansas City Chiefs, Isaiah Likely, foot on the back of the end zone type thing.
Yeah.
That's a win to win and a loss is a loss, unfortunately. So this was a win. This was I can't even say, I said convincing, right? It didn't start that way. It didn't
hard
start
to say
that way. It was convincing.
It was unconvincing in the first half.
Oh, yes. That's what I was trying to get to, man. Three and out. 3 plays, 2 yards, punt. 5 plays, 29 yards, field goal. Then they go down. Jameis Winston, once again, they ran 7 plays, 70 yards, finds Jerry Jeudy, I believe, on that one. I mean, the very first play, the Browns ran, their series was 3 plays minus 12, and you're like, oh, this is the route. This is where we're at. And maybe we should do some maths with Joe instead, because 27-14, boy, what a sucker bet when it comes to the over-under, right? I think the over-under 43.5, and this was 41. Carry the 1 over there. So, I took calculus in college. Sometimes the brain doesn't function so well, especially when I'm only running.
You took it.
Caffeine.
I took calculus in the 11th grade.
Well, I took it too. I took pre-calc. I took pre-calc in 11th grade. 12th grade, I took calculus. I did not like the TI 83 whatever plus graphic calculator. You could keep all that stuff. I
didn't use that crap either.
Yeah, no practicality. Well, they didn't even have that back when you were in school.
Good point. I had an abacus.
How do you do calculus with an abacus?
In your head.
Yeah. But I mean, hey, here. Should I bring the graphic back up? Because I got to count them out. Kind of like Sesame Street. 1, 3, and out. 2, 3 and out. 3 and out. They had 4 3 and outs through the beginning of the second quarter. or 4, I should say. I still can't count. Someone had asked me to name a vampire. I said, the guy from Sesame Street. They said he doesn't count. I said, oh, I assure you he does.
That's exactly what he does.
Four, and then all of a sudden the Steelers come alive, score a touchdown finally. But only 5 plays, 15 yards on this, and then a field goal, and then the end of half. They were given, and part of that was their defense, and part of that was, part of that was the Browns. There wasn't. I felt like at the beginning of the game, I know I was talking to you. I was like, what the hell did they see the officiating? And it was at the very beginning of the game. I felt like I'm like, here we go again, because you had Winston barely reach the line of scrimmage at a pass that went to nobody, and he sure as hell wasn't out of the pocket, and they were breathing fire.
Was not out of the pocket.
And I'm just like, how is that not intentional grounding? No conversation. I know they got the little headsets that they wear, and those could be live or they're push to talk, right? You push the button like a walkie-talkie. And I'm like, I don't know if there was a conversation, but it sure as hell looked like there was no consideration whatsoever. They just went about their business. Then all of a sudden on the next series, there's a flag after the punt team's out there, and intentional grounding with Russell Wilson. He threw a ball, one of these moon balls, and it goes out of bounds. And it's like, that's intentional grounding? Like,
and there was a receiver over there. Now, he had zero chance of catching the ball, but he was at least in the direction.
Oh, so that had me blowing a gasket. Then you had Joey Porter getting smacked in the face mask, and of course, he's got his own little temper, whatever.
Retaliation.
Gets it back. And you're always going to get the next guy. That's just the dumb
stuff. It's always the guy who retaliates. Always. They say it in every broadcast. It's just factual. If they don't catch the first guy, the retaliation always draws the flag.
I could tell you that from officiating over in, the other football, soccer, that was always the case. And you always, if you had another guy that came in to like a debate or a battle, or 2 guys talking smack, the third guy coming in is probably going to cause problems too. A major instigator, somebody that's probably going to get tagged with some type of foul. That's just the way it is. Or I just, I was watching part of that. There was one other call that happened early on. Oh, the roughing the passer with Alex Highsmith, wasn't it? Or was it Herbig? It was Highsmith, wasn't it?
No, it was Highsmith.
It was Highsmith, yeah. And you had a LeBron flop by Jameis Winston. And he touched me. And from like one angle, I could see if the official's like looking through it from the backside, and maybe you see what you thought you saw. But it's one of these things where it's like, okay, let's turn this around. The other guy had to come in there and just say, no, sorry. And some of those guys have enough of an ego or not. We're not going to upset the apple cart and tell the other guy that he's wrong. You didn't get replay assist help with the other call, but you did up in the booth for Russell Wilson for an intentional grounding. I'm just like, I was so frustrated, especially because it was like, a punt, and you're getting all these flags. You're getting no traction. Cleveland's up, just a little bit at that point. And then it starts to turn around because Keanu Benton puts his big mitts on a football that I still can't understand how he got his hands. A defensive lineman getting an interception, of course, is always great.
It's fun.
It is fun. That was the first play from scrimmage on that. That was, you were only a minute and a half into the second quarter. That was their first play from that series. And they immediately turned the ball over. You had a defensive pass interference. It did look like at times maybe Russell was out of sync. He was getting pressured early on, just the same way he was when they were up in Cleveland. And he was playing safe with the ball. He was getting rid of it quick. But there was one he threw, and it was like, well, where was that to? And I was like, immediately I was screaming. I'm like, Calvin Austin has an opportunity. Now, I didn't get to watch this on TV again. I didn't get to watch any replay, Brian. So this is all in stadium. But I saw where Calvin Austin was headed. And he was headed, and he went to make his cut and immediately got grabbed, got yanked, got impeded. And it's like, well, he would have had a chance to catch that ball. This guy runs a 4.2. So
look,
they got that one.
So here's the thing. The roughing the passer penalty, I told you this through text, ticky-tack, but legitimate in the sense that he took 2 steps and contacted the quarterback. They probably realized that was sort of lame because there was one that should have been called later in the game that didn't get called because they made contact to the head. But that's okay. So I'll consider that a wash. My problem with the refs remains the same as it always is. A, they just stink at their job. B, they're inconsistent, and that's the problem. players don't know how to play within the boundaries of the rules because the way the rules are adjudicated is different for every crew.
You're absolutely.
I'm throwing the $5 words out.
I
now.
like that.
Adjudicated.
You're absolutely correct, my friend. The consistency is more what I have a problem with because it's the same rule book, but it seems like there's different applications or interpretations of how those rules are laid out. Like it felt like there was just not going to be any holding or pass interference when they were in the snow, and they weren't even in the snow. But the second half of Cleveland, the first half, it was just like free for all. Flag. There was flag in Cincinnati. Those guys couldn't breathe. And this was a rematch. There was probably like an APB out on Joey Porter, and immediately when there was retaliation, they're like, we're going to try and keep a lid on it. I think it's a good place to interject something real quick. It was, how is this offense going to operate without George Pickens? He shows up late Friday, hamstring. Now there's a lot of speculation from anybody who wants a click and a view as to whether or not this was some other kind of punishment from Mike Tomlin, because Tracy Wolfson supposedly talked with Tomlin, said it looked like he was going to be able to play, and then all of a sudden he was on the inactives list. And Tomlin had said in his post-game presser, we just didn't feel that he would be able to play enough of the quality reps that we needed him to play. We didn't want a smaller problem become a bigger problem. That one, I believe, more than anything else,
100%.
Came out of his mouth.
That second part is 100%. That is coach speak for leave me alone. I'm doing what I got to do to make sure that he doesn't become Mr. Big Checks or whatever.
Oh, I don't even know it's big checks, but what if you trot him out here in a winnable game against a 3-win Browns team? I know you just lost.
And he does something dumb.
Well, now I'm not even going to say something dumb. What if he gets like seriously hurt and then he's
really
out?
Hurt. Oh, agreed.
Then he's out against the Eagles and the Ravens and Chiefs. You don't want to risk that. So I think there might be too much being read into that. If he did tweak something, sit his ass down. Larry Ogunjobi didn't come back either with a groin. You got to hope that's nothing that's too serious. I'm more worried about the injuries piling up at the end of the year against these quality teams, quality opponents, the 11-game span here. Now, they got a full week here. We're basically talking when they leave Philadelphia, then it's really going to be some, uphill treading.
That is just crazy. 3 games in 11 days, right? So 3 games in 11 days, that's a game in less than every 4 days. That's on average. That's not the way football is supposed to be played.
No, and you just saw the way that they played against Cleveland on Thursday night. They still had some life here or there, but it's lethargic to some degree. So, and then after they play the Ravens of all people in Baltimore, they had 2 road games, and then they get to come back and have to play Kansas City. So Kansas City's got to play on that shorter week too. We'll see, how they compete. Jumping back into this game though, aside from those injuries, I wanted to say there was a comment you made earlier I wanted to revisit, and it was about limiting TJ Watt's involvement, always sending a tight end or running back or wide receiver, somebody to just get in his way and make it harder for him to get to his path. But you could take TJ out of this, but you're not going to necessarily take Cam Hayward out of this. There was a lot of folks that were talking about he's an old man. Are they going to really re-sign him?
He's 45.
45.
He's out there getting 2 sacks at 45.
That was great.
Dante Jackson's hilarious.
Was that Dante Jackson? I forgot who or who was it?
No.
Oh, geez.
Safety.
I listened.
The guy who's
Deshaun Elliott. Yeah, that's right.
Deshaun Elliott.
I listened to all the
Deshaun
post-game interviews. He said 45 years old. I was just cracking up. That was that was wonderful. But he's playing his best football. Brian Batko, who one of the Pittsburgh newspapers, he's one of the beat writers. He's saying Captain Cam, it may be team MVP right now at this point. It's kind of hard to argue. Russell Wilson could also be in that conversation, but man, I'll tell you. And then there's you still get people who call in late, and I still got to bring up Minkah Fitzpatrick. You watch everywhere that he was bracketed. Winston wasn't going anywhere where he was bracketing one of the other corners, like Jackson, who did come out, Pierre, Beanie Bishop, who did play more this week than he did the previous week with Cam Sutton. That's because Cam Sutton floats back and plays like a pseudo safety too, and he's probably more adept at doing that. And he's also not a rookie, so you had more bodies to cover there, receiver wise. And Cleveland, just doesn't have that same kind of guys. They were looking for some of the mismatches. I thought that the defense did extremely well. You always want more perfection than what they had. They did give up 3 different drives that were at least 10 or more plays. One of those ended in a punt because they just tattooed them in the fourth quarter. That was after Renegade was played, and then they gave up the 1 touchdown. But I loved it. There was a third down play where they just cleared everybody out. You had everybody, it was a dime package, and I think 6 players, if not 7, all went 10 yards deep. And from the 10-yard zone, there was about, I got to find it in the game book, but it was like a 3rd and 20 or something, maybe after a penalty, maybe after a sack. And they just laid off, and they're like, we know you're going to go for it on 4th down, so we're just going to give up something short here underneath and make it a 4th and unmanageable. And we're only just going to send 3.
Is that not the one that it ended up being 4th and 25 or 4th and 24 because they
had to punt? Yeah.
And Tony Romo is still like disgusted with them for punting. He's like, oh, I can't believe they're going to punt. The game is on the line. How can you punt here? Oh my God, because it's 4th and 24.
Yeah, it was something unsightly. I'm trying to find it here. Yeah, so they went from a 3rd and 6 to Ifedi had a unnecessary roughness play after Winston was sacked by Cam Hayward. So the 3rd and 6 ended up being the 4th and 24. There was there was a false start too by Jack Conklin. So they had like back-to-back penalties. They just shot themselves in the foot. And then there was another one where they end up going for it. 4th down at some point. They ended up getting, Winston was thrown around. They found Njoku, still shoved off, and they just didn't call it this time. That dude, I'll tell you, Mike Williams, the one that he got tagged for, it was like, this is the same kind of hand fighting. We've seen it all season long. We've seen Pickens not get calls. We've seen Mike Williams get tagged with a call. Again, the inconsistency, it's like all you could do is try and play your game and just hope it goes your way.
This is the one where Tony Romo makes a good comment. If you're a receiver, right, and your push off is high, you're going to get a flag. That's the way it is. Doesn't matter if it's really a push off or not.
Mike Williams is what, 6'4", 6'5"?
I know, but I'm just telling you, if it's up about midway in the body, then it's going to get seen, and it gets seen, and it's done. If you do it down here, see where you can't tell what I'm doing, right?
Please don't do that on camera.
But we're pushing off down here, it doesn't get called as much. And that's just the way it is. It's like you just have to, it's one of those unwritten rules of football. You have to know, and you learn it as you're an aged veteran. And
aged veteran. Listen to you. Man, it didn't say who was in coverage on that one with the penalty either, because I wanted to see. It was probably like one of these corners. I know it wasn't Ward. It's like one of these guys.
No, it wasn't Ward.
It was Was it Emerson? Or hold on, I was trying to see who the other corner was.
Probably that guy that we never heard of.
And the one guy got.
I don't know who that is.
Mike Ford was the guy that got hurt. So you had 31 and you had 23. So Emerson's been playing the other corner opposite Denzel Ward. So let's see. Ford's 6 foot tall. He's given up about 4 or 5 inches to Williams. Emerson's a little taller. He's 6'2". So, but still, my point remains the same. You've got a wide receiver with size. I mean, you think Calvin Austin's ever going to get called for pushing anybody off? He's like 5'10". And like
well, this is the difference. If Calvin Austin tries to push somebody off, they don't move.
That's true. Right? Hey, oh my goodness.
Dude, he moves. That's what happens. He moves back.
But if Ben Skoranek pushes you, you're probably going to, he's going to move some guys too.
He is going to move some guys.
Let me tell you how impressed I am with Ben Skoranek. Yeah, that may have merited a text from me as well during the game. As you know, like every now and then, like I don't ignore you. I get it on my watch. If I have gloves on, which I didn't, it was a beautiful day yesterday. 50s. The wind was whipping, but it wasn't like very chilly or cold. It was beautiful, like just Pittsburgh December football weather. It was just crisp. That's the way I could describe it. And the Steelers end up punting at one point, and Kadarius Toney
blows, muffs the punt,
looks at it like, oh, there's the football.
He's off balance. You have to see the replay. He goes down and he's falling backwards going like this. Oh, crap. trying to catch himself, and he can't. And then Ben comes in and grabs the ball.
I know, and that finishes the game essentially.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I mean, this is the Browns going to Browns. I think this was Winston or somebody said a comment about them beating themselves. They did a little bit of that. Yes, we talked about the unnecessary roughness, the 4th and 24. Tony was just signed to the active roster there. The previous punt, we have to give, I don't want to say necessarily a game ball, but credit where credit's due. Corliss Waitman, who I see more and more of the Pickett jerseys with the duct tape on the back and handwritten with Waitman on the back now. I think they're well worth it. This dude boomed a couple of punts. He had one that was 55. I think that one goes 58. That Skoranek ends up covering the muff with Tony. I was just like, even if he's off balance, dive on the grenade, dude. But this whole end of the game, Dante Jackson left and he came back, but we had James Pierre get an interception at one point. The Steelers look like after they finally scored, the Browns scored, and they make it 27-14. You're like, okay, let's run this out. There's about 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and this is going to be it, right? Cordell Patterson, after about 5 plays, fumbles. Myles Garrett gets the football. This like Looney Tunes over there celebrating. He was celebrating on his like little crappy sack too, and it's like, look at the scoreboard, guy. And it's just funny because within 2 plays, Winston, he has like one like dump off pass, Jerome Ford, that was out to the sidelines, very quick. And then he goes for Elijah Moore, and James Pierre, of all players, picks this pass off. And it's just like, well, there you go. Steelers have a chance to put this away. Garrett gets his dumb little sack that he ends up having. Waitman punts 58 yards. Tony drops the ball. Skoranek dives on it. Ball game. Bring out the victory formation. After Najee, of course, runs a few times. Najee, they had a 3rd and 5 after the 2-minute warning. It was the only other chance for the Browns to stop the clock. They had burned the rest of their timeouts previously. And Najee Harris comes out on 3rd and 5 and runs for 9. They move people against their will and then bring out Minka, let him stand behind Russ, kneel twice, ball game, Steelers 10-3. Beautiful, man. What else could I say?
I don't know. It was beautiful. It was enjoyable. It was wonderful. It was fantastic.
It's even better.
I'm trying to do the whole attorney guy from Seinfeld, but I can't. It was meticulous. It was spectacular. It was dramatic. Climatic.
You actually sound like the doctor on The Simpsons. Like,
I don't even know who the doctor is.
Is his name Herbert or whatever? And he was like, he's always got the diagnosis that's wrong. It's like, oh, this looks really bad. Oh, wait, that's not your chart or something like that, right? And not the guy, the other guy, not the crazy guy. It's like, hey, come over here and I'll get your surgery. But I'll tell you, there was something that surfaced. I think it was like Wyatt Teller's wife or something, and she was unhappy with the way Steelers fans were there. It's like, you really need to take off the goggles and see what it's like when you're in Cleveland and see how nasty people could be there and how some of those fans could be. I don't necessarily see Steelers fans causing a lot of fights or anything. I saw some Browns fans there. I told you, they trickled in. But that whole Cleveland sucks chant was precipitated by Myles Garrett running his mouth and doing those little taunts and celebrations when they're losing. And when Tony muffed that punt and Skoranek gets the ball, that was it. The Cleveland sucks chants come out because they ask for it themselves. The same thing was like when Baker, he would get like, they'd be losing. He would scamper, get a first down, like run for 4 yards, start doing like this Tarzan thing where he's beating his chest. Like, okay, guy, you're a real gamer, but you're losing by 3 scores. Like, you're asking for it. You're just, you're trying to incite the fans. And when you do that, that's what you get. So, sorry, not sorry. So,
yeah, I don't care.
Yeah. And I say convincing because like the Steelers really did have this in the third quarter. They're up 3 scores. Dustin Hopkins just could not hit a field goal. Like it was unreal. And we talk about that. It was in the closed end of the stadium. I have no idea what was going on. Their whole special teams was a damn mess. I mean, if anything, we talk about Winston. And Winston, he was held. He only had, he was a sub 60% completion percentage, 58.2, 212 yards. He was sacked 3 times, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They didn't run the ball extremely well. Winston ran for 28, Ford for 28. It was a 2.8 average. Chubb 4.4 average, 10 carries, 48 yards. They had 104, but a few of those were busted plays and scrambles, not necessarily designed for Winston. Jerry Jeudy was held 5-64, and Njoku was targeted 13 times. He caught 7 of the 13 for 42. He had the 1 touchdown. That is a 6-yard per average reception. These are some of the numbers that tell a little bit more about the game in general from a Steelers defensive standpoint. Now, from a Steelers offensive standpoint, Najee Harris, 16 for 53, 3.3. Jalen Warren, 9 for 47. Warren out-snapped Najee, more or less because of his blocking. Russ, running the ball around. Old man, getting a little spry in his feet. Maybe seeing what Justin Fields was doing. Some people were asking, why didn't Justin Fields come into this game? Because he didn't need it. And the Browns weren't expecting Russ to do what Russ did in a few of those instances. And he moved the chains as necessary. I think it was savvy. Cordero Patterson, 4 carries, 3 yards. And I know they like to do some different things with them. It's just like Connor Hayward. I think that ship sailed. They tried to hit Patterson.
I don't know. Connor did a nice job. He had a nice block.
Mm-hmm.
Sprung the 1 touchdown.
I'm talking about
nice.
merely from trying to hit him as like trying to outsmart yourself and like, oh well, I'm going to throw the ball to Connor Hayward, or I'm going to throw the ball to Cordero Patterson. I mean, Patterson had a catch for -2 in this game. Pruitt was an outlet guy.
Some people just play the roles that they're meant to play, right? I'm okay with Connor playing the role he's meant to play. Cordell Patterson is, he's this Swiss Army knife thing that you're trying to figure out what to do with, and I just don't think they know for sure what they want to do with him yet.
Yeah,
or if they can, because he's also he's an aged veteran. He's grizzled.
He is grizzled. He's 34, and it's just an older guy.
But I don't even know if we can say that kind of stuff no more, because Cam, is 45 years old and he's getting 2 sacks a game.
That's very true. Pat Freiermuth leads all the receivers with 48 yards, touchdown. We talked about him being a wide receiver too, starting to get utilized a lot more. That was a beautiful pass play. Scotty Miller comes in for
that was a hell of an effort by Scotty Miller.
Active and everything. Man, the guy he makes the plays when his number's called. He makes the plays. Mike Williams finally catching a few passes, 3 for 36. Ball gets moved around a little bit. Jalen Warren, 2 for 25. Van Jefferson, the 1 for 10. Calvin Austin, only the 1 for 4, which killed me in fantasy because I had to substitute Pickens with somebody, and there was just nobody available. My other guys were on bye weeks too. So Darnell Washington, he was thrown out once. He didn't end up catching the ball. And then, like I said, Pruitt and Patterson in the negative category. But once again, you got, 9 different guys that were targeted in the pass game by Russell Wilson. Russell went 15 of 26. They didn't rely on Russell throwing the ball or throwing it too much. In this one, only 158 yards. He didn't even complete 60% of his passes. He didn't need to. He had 2 touchdowns. He only gave up that 1 lone sack, 101.1 rating. That's the way I think you beat the Eagles, man. You're going to have to be able to run the ball on them, but we'll talk about that more next later.
Here's the thing. The thing that surprised me from this game was, and again, it's because they didn't expect it, was the Winston runs, right? Winston, they were running the ball, they were handing off to Chubb, but they did a couple of those little RPO things where Winston takes off and gets a first down. Every time he did it, he got like a first down. That could be seen as concerning, right? Because what do you got coming up? You got Jalen Hurts, you got Lamar, you got Pat Mahomes. All 3 of those guys can get out and run, right? And the thing is, they know how to play those guys. They just didn't expect it, I don't think, this last week. And it kind of caught them by surprise. I hope that they are more attuned to that when we get into Philadelphia, because Jalen Hurts will make them pay if they don't.
I think Saquon is the bigger guy to watch.
Saquon is a very big concern.
Yeah, Saquon,
absolutely, no question about it.
With over 1,600 yards, we'll be talking about that. They've got a number of receivers. They're a complete team. I'm going to say it now in case I forget to say it later when you catch us back, folks. On the flip side, for the pregame against the Eagles here, I think it's going to be a preview of the Super Bowl. It very well could be. I know a lot of people are high on Detroit. I think Detroit can be a little too reckless, and I think Philadelphia is less reckless, and they've got the players that have been there and done that already, right? So that means a lot. I also think the Steelers got the guys that have been there and done that. Sorry, Josh Allen has not been there and done that. Josh Allen is folded. Like, he's going to start getting the tag like Peyton Manning used to get as being the choke artist too. Russell Wilson has been there and done that. Mike Tomlin has been there and done that. So I know the Steelers don't have all those players, but those are pretty key when you have a head coach quarterback that have been in those positions. So it'll be, yeah, I got a lot to say about the Eagles. I like the Eagles. I'm not going to be downtrodden on the Eagles. I'm not going to besmirch their team. They have a very good team. They are very deep in so many facets of their game. They've drafted so many Brian, I know that's what you're looking at. You're looking at the guys like they draft, like other defensive line, offensive line, all the guys you talked about. And it just even look at like Cooper DeJean this year too. They've got him too. Like somehow they keep doing it, right?
With the way that our pass protection has been, I am extremely concerned about this Eagles game.
And that's fair. We'll be back later this week, folks. Hopefully you enjoyed this show. There was a lot to enjoy about, beating the Cleveland Browns. Don't let them sweep you. You still got to go back to the Tim Couch era as to the last time. You talk about teams not winning in certain cities. I know the Steelers, they might not have won in Philly since, the 65. But
65.
They've only played like 5 or 6 games
10.
Since like the 90s, though. Yeah, I'm talking about Super Bowl, even the Super Bowl era since like 1970. I don't think they're not in double digits for as many times they played in Philadelphia.
No,
they're not, not whatsoever. I have those numbers. I have them somewhere. I'll pull them up when we do that actual pregame show. But like Cleveland, they play every single year in Pittsburgh. And I know they got the one playoff win in 2020, but regular season, it just isn't happening. And I know people who made some bets on this game, and some won and some lost. And it's just fun. I got a big smile on my face, and I'll just keep moving forward. I was in Northeast Ohio on Saturday. I was in the neck of the woods. I was outside of, Youngstown area. There's a lot of Browns fans there. I was picking up some pizzas. Some of the best pizza you could ever get. Youngstown, Ohio. Trust me. A lot of Italian immigrants there. Not to be funny, mafia town. Old mafia town. So you got a lot of good Italian food, right? And I'm picking up my pizzas.
I'm very aware of that.
Oh, yeah. They mentioned it in The Sopranos. It was fun. It's fun. I'm like,
Remember, I grew up in Ohio, too. So
yeah.
Certain, I won't discuss my misspent youth, but I know certain things.
Oh, okay. He knows where the bodies are. He can find Jimmy Hoffa. But just some 2%er thing if you ever come through.
I don't know where Jimmy Hoffa is.
Yeah, it was the old stopping point between New York City and Chicago for many a years. And, so not to be funny, anytime I go back there, I got to grab a pizza. And of course, I'm got my Steelers stuff on. And somebody had to open their mouth. Enjoy your pizzas tonight, because tomorrow's going to be a rough day. And just look at this guy. And I'm like, you guys haven't won there since Tim Couch was the quarterback. Tim Couch. I'm like, now this guy had some grays, so he's at least old enough to know who that is. So just think about it. We've got some Steelers fans that aren't even old enough or haven't been watching. Maybe even Flash. And Flash is like 30, or in his early 30s, I think. And it's like he doesn't have a memory of losing to the Browns in Pittsburgh. It has not happened. Has it happened at Acrisure or Heinz, whatever?
Well,
since
the
that
playoff
building's
game,
been
that's
there?
the only one.
Yeah, just the playoff game. So I mean, it's been a run. And you don't have to play in the snow. You don't have to play on Thursday Night Football or short weeks or any shenanigans or in front of no fans or anything like that in order to gain your victories. So the Steelers just straight up. Now, Philadelphia, hostile environment. Charlie Batch talked about this on the post game. They're probably not going to be selling their tickets. They're a winning team. They are. It's one of those places.
Even if they do, they're very expensive. I looked.
Yeah, and they're a fan base they're rough. They're going to be into it. So I don't know if there's any love loss. Somebody's going to say it's some Battle of Pennsylvania.
Here's the thing. This is my region, right? This is where I live.
Yes.
I live around Philadelphia, near Philadelphia, on the other side of the bridge. They hate us. And it isn't because they have a good reason to hate us. It is pure spite and jealousy. They hate us because they ain't us. And that's the truth. They are spiteful, jealous, petty people.
Yeah, they ain't us. They're not like us. I like that they do play a lot of Snoop Dogg songs after he's been in the building now. They even come out to oh geez, I can't think of the name of it, but it's during the introductions. It'll come to me later. But old school song. It was from like '93 or whatever off the Doggy Style album. I can't think of the name of it, but they play like that other song. They play like a couple of Snoop songs. otherwise. So it's kind of fun. And then you get the Steelers polka. And it's like, we're from the town with the great football team. We are the Pittsburgh Steelers. Winning's a habit, not only a dream. Oh my God, I'm so glad they play that. It's so great. Don't listen to me sing. I already got a bad enough voice. I'm checking out here. We're up against it, folks. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And leave us your thoughts. Maybe we'll get some Browns trolls in there. Well, you can join Myles Garrett and looking forward to next season, suckers. Well, next time, my name's Joe.
Do us a favor, beat the Ravens.
Brian, yes.
And beat the Chiefs. That's all come on, do that.
Yeah, just whatever. They're not into helping us. We know that. And when we did,
we don't want you to do it. We want to go the hard way. Don't beat the Ravens. Don't beat the Chiefs. It won't be helpful.
Yep. Right. Whatever. Anyways,
reverse
Brian,
psychology.
Yeah, reverse psychology. That's, you need the fresh sarcasm sign. Until next time, folks. My name's Joe. His name's Brian. Encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.